welcome in to Texans Today. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and on today's program, looking at the top trade candidates for the Houston Texans after the 2025 NFL Draft. After all the dust is settled during this draft, where do some of the guys who are already on this Texans roster stand, and could one of those guys be traded? Because we know one thing about Nick Caserio, he is not shy about trades. So, could we see another Texans trade happen during this offseason? But before we get into today's program, I want to play a fun game. Name a random Texans player in the comment section. What do you know about Brahman? What do you know about Holiday? What do you know about DJ Swearinger? What do you know about a little Connor Barwin, Brooks Reed, Jamie Sharper, Steve Slayton? Get down in the comment section. The weirder, the better. I want to know. Name a random Texans player that maybe not everybody even thinks about down in the comment section. I want to see how weird y'all can get, how crazy these names can get down below. I want you to pull deep into your bag and get me the most random Texans player that you can think of. Now, let's get into today's program. Christian Harris, the only defensive player that I have on this video, because I think the Texans defense is stacked at the moment, and I don't see them trying to make a ton of changes on that side of the football. The one player that I could see the Texans be willing to move for the right price, Christian Harris, former linebacker out of Alabama. This past year, was injured for most of the season, and that kind of led the way for Henry To'o to take the mantle and be one of the starting linebackers for this team. Right now, if the Texans, on their base 4-3 set went out there, I do think Christian Harris would probably be the starter right now alongside Azeez Al-Shaair and Henry To'o. But the Texans signed E.J. Speed. They also signed Nick Niemann. Jake Hansen re-signed. They have last year's draft pick Jamal Hill, and then a UDFA and Caserio. I just, on the last year of his deal, I'm not sure where he stands with this Texans team, this Texans coaching staff. I know that they do like Christian Harris and like his style of play. Obviously, 2 years ago, he was instrumental in that win up against the Cleveland Browns in Wild Card Weekend, and he was awesome. And everybody was hoping for Harris County in 2024. Everybody was pumped for him during the season. And then he got injured in, OTAs and minicamp. And I don't think we fully know the extent of Harris's injury. People were saying there was rumors that it was possibly an Achilles injury and not just like a hamstring, soft tissue injury down below. And then the other part that really I can't wrap my mind around is he returned at the end of last year, right? After the bye week, he came back and was one of the linebackers on this Texans team. But then he got benched in the playoffs. 7 snaps up against the Chargers. Only 1 snap played up against the Kansas City Chiefs during that divisional round matchup. Why is that? Why did he get benched? Was it a play thing? Did he re-aggravate that injury? Was he not fully ready to come back? There's a lot of question marks around Christian Harris, and he is now entering the final year of his rookie contract where the Texans could decide to extend him, maybe let him play out that final year, or they could look to move off of him before he leaves out the building for nothing. I'm really interested to see where the Texans go with this. They obviously felt the need to add at linebacker after signing E.J. Speed, and with D'Amico Ryans at the helm, he's a former linebacker himself. He's used to grooming some of these linebackers, getting these guys ready, and he has a good eye for signing them as well. I am really interested to see what happens with the Texans and Christian Harris this offseason, especially as we get closer to minicamp, to OTAs. I'm really, I'm perplexed to see what happens with Christian Harris and basically, coming off of last year, where he stands with this linebacker room. Let's go to the next one. And this is a double doozy. I have 2 double doozies on today's show. The first one, Scruggs and Jarrett Patterson, where there's going to be a battle for the center position. And I don't think this is a trade that happens anytime soon. I think this is a trade that happens closer and closer to the regular season. If a team has an injury or if they need an extra lineman on the interior, I could see the Texans dealing one of these guys, whoever doesn't win the starting position. Because, Scruggs, where a lot of y'all have been in the comment section chirping at me saying, how could you have Scruggs as the starting center going into 2025? They didn't add anybody really in the draft. Not a lot of competition. I could see easily how Scruggs could walk into that starting spot for the center position for the Houston Texans this year, even though he had a, not so great 2024, according to PFF and according to a lot of Texans fans who watched all the games last year. Per PFF, his overall grade is 63. His pass blocking grade, 62.1. Run blocking grade, 63.7. 5 sacks allowed, 6 penalties on the season. Scruggs with a, very, I would say, mediocre 2024 at best. He's not somebody who a lot of Texans fans have faith in, but was drafted in round 2 out of Penn State to take over that center spot. He was drafted as a center-only style prospect, and I think the problem has been they played Scruggs a lot at guard, and I just don't think he's powerful enough to play that position. I don't think he has, the brute strength to be a guard in the NFL. If he's going to have any success at this level, I think it's only going to be at the center spot. And that's where it comes down to a problem because they have another guy in Jarrett Patterson who's played the center spot a lot for this team. And I would argue, and a lot of people would also argue, has played better than Scruggs when he's given the shot at that center spot. Last year, 10 games played, and he's been somebody who this Texans team has kind of relied on the past 2 years when the injury bug has struck. And last year, according to PFF, overall had a better year than Scruggs, a 64.3 overall grade, a pass blocking grade of 69.9. That's where he really excels. The only problem is the run blocking grade and his strength at the point of attack. That run blocking grade of 58.8 kind of shows you how Jarrett Patterson is more of a one-sided guy, more of a pass blocking specialist than a run blocker. Only 3 sacks allowed, 1 penalty in 2024. But that's the problem. If the Texans want to go run heavy, which I think they will under Nick Caley, he's going to want to run the ball, get that, and then work off the play action with C.J. Stroud. Is Jarrett Patterson your guy if you want a more run-heavy style team? I don't know if he is. And I could see the Texans trading either one of these guys if, they lose out the center position to the other. Or there's some more competition that they added, right? Some low-key competition. Jake Andrews, who they claimed off of waivers from the New England Patriots, did not play in 2024 due to an injury that he sustained in the preseason. But, he formerly was with Texans offensive line coach Cole Popovich at Troy. So the connections are there. He's very familiar with this Texans coaching staff, so he could have the inside, leg on some of these other guys. Same with Eli Cox, who they signed as an undrafted free agent, but also paid the most money out of any of their undrafted free agents to. They really saw a lot in Eli Cox, and he had a couple different options to go to after the draft, and the Texans were definitely, high on Cox, and they wanted him with this Texans team. They really wanted him to come and compete for this center position. So I think you could see 4 different guys vying for that position, which obviously the 2 front runners are the guys who are already on this team, Scruggs and Jarrett Patterson. So that leads me to this question right here. Who do you think should be the Texans center in 2025? Type JS for Scruggs, type JP for Jarrett Patterson, or if you think it's one of those other guys, let me know down in the comment section why you think it would be either Eli Cox or Jake Andrews. I think those are the only 4 options on this Texans squad right now. But let me know down in the comment section, who do you think should be the Texans center in 2025? Next up, Dameon Pierce. And I know it seems like I'm a Dameon Pierce hater, and I promise you I'm not. Actually, the opposite. If you're on this video right now, I actually think you're pretty talented because to be a trade candidate, that means other teams would have to be interested in you. And I think other teams would be interested in a Christian Harris, a Scruggs or Jarrett Patterson, or a Dameon Pierce. So I actually think pretty highly of these guys because if not, the Texans would just outright cut these guys because they're not good enough to be on an NFL roster. I think these guys are really good. Just where the Texans roster stands right now, especially Dameon Pierce with Joe Mixon being lead back and the Texans trade up in round 4 to get Woody Marks, I don't know his spot on the team. And then this coming out from Aaron Wilson. Shout out to Texans Jacob, who tweeted out Aaron Wilson's video. The Texans worked out 2 veteran running backs. Former Bengals running back Chris Evans and former Bengals running back Travion Williams, both who have connections to Joe Mixon. So the Texans are not done adding to that running back room. They already re-signed Daria Gumbawale, one of the first moves they made this offseason. And then, like I said, they traded up for Woody Marks. So where does that leave a Dameon Pierce? Is he somebody that you have for special teams usage of a kick returner? Is he somebody who you use in goal line packages? What is the role for Dameon Pierce? Because with some of the additions and some of the guys on this roster already, I'm not sure if they need him for either of those, right? They signed Braxton Berrios to be a kick return, punt return specialist, and if he makes this team, I think that's really bad news for Dameon Pierce. And then British Brooks, Jakob Johnson, two fullback-style players. I think they could use either of those guys in goal line situations if they needed somebody as a, fullback dive up the middle. So Dameon Pierce, I really do like his game, and I had so much promise in Dameon Pierce after his rookie season because he was absolutely electric for this Texans team when Davis Mills was the quarterback. But I just don't see a route where Dameon Pierce makes a legitimate impact for this Texans team with how the roster stands right now in 2025. I have another trade candidate for you coming up, but if you want a Texans hat, actually the Texans hats that our rookies were wearing on draft night, you can get them right now with our friends over at Fanatics. Just go to chatsports.com/Texans hats. That link will be in the comment section and description of today's video. And not just the draft hats. You can get any of these hats that my producer Lopez is scrolling across the screen right now. All of them available over there. And there are some that are on sale right now. It's about to be summertime. It's about to get sunny outside. So if you need a new lid, if you need some new Texans gear, I got it for you right here. Just go to chatsports.com/Texans hats. One more time, that link will be in the comment section and description of today's video. So a lot of y'all probably guessed this. The other double doozy is going to be John Metchie and Xavier Hutchinson. And I don't know if either of these guys make the roster of this team, right? Like, obviously, the Texans drafted Hutchinson's, college guys and Jalen Noel, Jaden Noel, and Jaden Higgins from Iowa State. But besides the four guys you see pictured, I don't know if anybody else's job is secured. Obviously, Tank Dell at the bottom of the screen, probably going to be on IR to start the season. But between John Metchie, Xavier Hutchinson, Justin Watson, Braxton Berrios, and even some of the guys beneath, right? Jared Wayne got some run last year. Johnny Johnson III as well. I don't think they realistically vie for a roster spot, but it's going to be a tough one. And there was teams last year that were calling the Texans for Xavier Hutchinson and John Metchie during the preseason. There were teams that were, trying to kind of gauge the interest of the Texans to trade either one of these guys. They ended up keeping them both on the roster. They cut Noah Brown, let him walk and go to Washington. But Xavier Hutchinson, John Metchie, it's going to be a tough road. And I think if a team comes calling with a good enough, offer for either of these guys, I could see the Texans jumping at it. And actually, John Metchie more than Xavier Hutchinson, I could see the Texans, trying to move on from him. I think teams might be interested in him. A former second-round pick does offer some punt return value for you right there. And, still shows some of that promise. Last year up against the Lions, arguably his best game, I thought Metchie was back. And be it a mistake or not with Metchie, I just don't know if he has a spot on this team next year. And Texans PR, a big boo-boo right here, and they tried to make up for it. Underneath they were like, oh, we were just talking about the Texans defense. We were just talking about the Texans defense. But when you put out a graphic like this where it says Houston Texans, Alabama Crimson Tide, and you don't have John Metchie in that picture, that's not a good look. That's not a good look for John Metchie making this team moving forward. Yes, does the PR team know who's going to make the roster at the end of the day? No, they don't know until a lot of us know, right? They're just there to make cool graphics like this one. But at the same time, whenever you're talking about, former Alabama players on this Texans team and you don't mention John Metchie, it's not a good look for the young kid going into his third season. Now, that's all I have for you on today's show, folks. One more time, you can hit me up on Twitter at Jeremy Chuggs. If you have any questions, any comments, concerns, my DMs are always open to chop it up. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button for daily Texans videos all year long, 100% for free.